let's talk about the inghams tonight. So, do I think they need to be getting out? Do I think they need to get the hell out of Dubai? Absolutely. I think they need to get the hell out of Dubai pretty promo. I mean, with everything that's going on over there at the moment, I think they need to, get out of Dubai as soon as possible. Um, I mean, I just think at the moment, I think it's not safe over there at the moment. I mean, if I was in Dubai right now, I would probably be shitting myself. To be fairly honest, I wouldn't want. I don't think I would want to stay there with everything that's going on at the moment with Iran and all that kind of thing. I would want to get out of Dubai as quickly as possible. Um, Especially if I had, if I had kids, I would want to get kids out there as soon as, as soon as like fairly quickly. And that is what they need to do. They need to get, they need to get their kids out there, pretty quickly. I just think it's not safe to, for them to be over there in the Middle East at the moment, especially when they've got, especially with young children. I think that for safety reasons, I think they need to get away from there. They need to, we all know that things are not as safe that are not that safe at the moment. And and obviously there's no denying. Things are getting more and more dangerous practically every hour. Things are getting more and more dangerous. And I think with the fact that the fact that things are getting more and more dangerous, it's getting more and more apparent. It's becoming more and more obvious that they need to get the hell out of Dubai fairly quickly, and they need to get their kids out there as well. It's not safe to be in the Middle East at this point. Um, I certainly wouldn't want to be in the still be in the Middle East, even if I had kids. I would be wanting to get the first available flight back. And that's what I would hope that off camera, well, I really hope that off camera, Chris is taking his family's safety very seriously. But part of me doubts that. He probably thinks it's all one big conspiracy, or he probably thinks it's all hype. That's the sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that Chris would say is, oh, it's all just hype. Things are not as bad. As people are making them out to be, but they are. Extremely bad. Things are definitely not safe. You know, it's definitely not safe for for them to be in the Middle East with young children. I think they need to be getting their kids out of there. And they need to be getting their asses back to the UK. But especially with the fact that things are getting so dangerous over there at the moment in the Middle East, I wouldn't want to be over there with young kids, especially kids that are as young as like Mila and Aurora and everything. You would want to get your kids away from there. You would want to get back to UK where it's get back to over here where it's actually safe. You would want where you know that his would be his are gonna be safe. Why would you want to stay in the Middle East when all of this with everything that's going on at the moment, the war and everything that's going on in the Middle East at the moment? Why would you think it was safe to stay over there? If they had any common sense, they would get the hell out of there, and they would they would get back over here fairly quickly. You know, I would be that would be me. I'd be shitting myself if I was in Dubai right now. I'd be wanting to get the first available flight back. I wouldn't want to be staying there, especially if I had kids. There was no way. There was no way I would. If I had kids, there was no way I would think it was safe to stay over there right now. I would want to come back. Pretty sharpish. I would want to get out of there, and I would want to get away from all of that fairly quickly. And they need to be doing that as well. They need to get the hell out of Dubai as soon as possible. They need to get their kids out of there because it's not safe right now. We all know it isn't. Um, you know, I mean, they need to take. It's his safety that needs to be their number one priority. Obviously, when you think about how dangerous things are at the moment, but they probably need to be careful. They probably need to get out of there as soon as they can. And obviously, it's probably not a smart idea to want to be staying in Dubai at the moment. with the war and everything that's going on. I certainly wouldn't want my kids over there at this point with the war and everything. I want to get my kids out of there as soon as possible. Let them, get them back, get them away from all of that. You know, I mean, the problem with the inghams is they're probably loving all the drama. To be honest, they're probably loving seeing everything, seeing all the drama that's going on, and you know, but I imagine the inghams right now, they're probably not as concerned or as worried as they probably should be. They're probably not as scared by what's going on as they should be. They probably don't see that, don't see the urgency to get away from Dubai or get it's out of there. They probably don't see it. They don't think it's not that it's things as dangerous as they are right now. You know, but yeah, absolutely, 110%. They need to get, they need to get out of there. They need to get their kids out of there. His friends are just gonna, get worse, get worse and worse. Things are gonna keep getting more and more and more and more dangerous. I would, I wouldn't want to be in Dubai right now. I wouldn't want to be, stay over there. I wouldn't want to be over there right now, to be honest. That's me being brutally honest. Because I think we all know that, it's just not safe. They need to get the hell out of Dubai with all of this, all of this stuff that's going on at the moment. They need to get the hell out of there. They need to get their kids out of there pretty, fast, pretty ASAP. That's what I'm going to say, is they need to get their kids out of there. For their safety more than anything. You know, that's what they need to be doing. They need to be getting their kids out there pretty quickly, as quickly as quickly as possible, to be honest. Everything's kind of going on over there at the moment. I would want to make sure that my kids were safe. That's always going to be, that should always be a parent's number one priority. That is make sure that kids are safe, and if that means getting their head out to buy and getting it kids over pretty sharpish, I would do that. I think they need to be. That's what they need to be thinking about, is getting it kids away from Dubai fairly quickly, as soon as they possibly blooming can. I think they need to be thinking about that. Getting it kids out of Dubai, getting home. As obviously it's not safe to be over there right now, obviously with everything that's going on with the war, and I think we all know that. Um, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't think it was safe to be over in Dubai right now. Especially with young kids. It's just getting more and more and more and more dangerous right now. It's getting scary. To see, and the fact that they're over in the Middle East right now. With all that that's going on, they need to get out of there. Simple. They need to get their kids. You know, I want to get, with all this that's going on over, they need to get out of the Middle East, out of Dubai, and get their asses back to the UK. Simple. They need to do that very fast. But they probably, as I said, they probably don't think there's any real need to be too worried or too concerned right now. That's the reality. I mean, Chris probably just thinks it's, as I said, Christopher, I'm a twat in him, probably thinks it's all just hype. He thinks, that's the thing with Chris, he thinks everything is just hype. But this is not hype. This is dangerous. This is a dangerous situation right now, and they need to get away from that. They need to get their kids away from away from that. Things are so dangerous and unsafe in the Middle East right now. And they need to get away from that. They need to get their kids out of there. You know, that's all I'm gonna say. I mean, there's not much else I could say about this that I haven't already said. Other than they do need to get their kids out of the Middle East as quickly as they possibly flipping can, as it's just not safe to be over there in the Middle East at the moment. I certainly wouldn't want to be over there at the moment with everything that's going on. I would want to get my kids out of there as quickly as I could. For their safety more than anything. You know, because at the end of the day, his safety should be more important than anything else right now. Fuck everything else. All I'd be worried about is getting my kids out of there, getting my kids out to buy out the Middle East with everything that's going on at the moment. That should be their number one priority. You know, it's like forget everything else. prioritize his safety. Get your fucking kids out of the Middle East. Get you and your kids out of the Middle East. Get your kids out of Dubai. It's not safe to be over there right now. It's too dangerous for them to be over in Dubai right now. They need to get out of there, and they need to get their kids out of there. If they had any common sense, they would do that. You know, it's not about hyping up anything, or it's not. Things are pretty damn bad right now, and they're getting worse and worse. They're getting more and more and more and more dangerous, and they need to get their kids out there before it's too late. They need to, they need to prioritize in this situation. They need to prioritize its safety, and in this sort of situation, nothing else matters. His safety is your number one priority. Get them the fuck out of Dubai. Get them back to get back to the UK as quickly as you can before things get any worse than they already are. You know, get away from there. Get well away from there. While with all that that's going on. You know, why would you want to be over there? Why would you want to be over in Dubai and everything right now with everything that's going on? Yeah, well, I'd be as I said, I'd be shitting myself if I was in Dubai right now with everything that's going on over there. I wouldn't want to be over there, especially with young children. You know, I can imagine that, Preston and Sarah are probably not that scared, but I imagine that his would be absolutely terrified with it, to be honest, which is why they need to get their kids out of there. You know, that's what I'm going to say. So I hope you enjoyed this little video. I thought I would give my thoughts on that. Hopefully I'll see you for another one soon. Bye bye. My phone keeps falling over.